Welcome tonight to our final panel of Cornell Sports and Entertainment Week. And dare I say, they saved the best for last. I'm Elizabeth Berman, class of 97 and 04. And yes, you heard that right. I went to Cornell not once, but twice. I was an undergrad of the hotel school. And as my husband often says, I got it right the second time going back for my ILR. Tonight, I have the pleasure of joining you with some incredible panelists to share with you their unique stories about how they landed a job in the sports and entertainment industries. Like them, I recently broke into the business, joining Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment about a year ago as their chief HR officer. Many of you know us for our two major teams, the Philadelphia 76ers and the New Jersey Devils. Tonight's session, we will start by introducing our panelists, get a little bit into their stories, and then spend the time engaging with you in dialogue. So on that note, please start sending in your questions now through the chat, and we will hit them up through our conversation. With me tonight are Harrison Marcus. Harrison Marcus graduated from the ILR school this past May and is currently part of the NFL's junior rotational program, where he works in the broadcasting department. During his time at ILR, Harrison held internships at Sweet Experience Group, GSC Worldwide, and the NFL Player Care Foundation. He's joined by Emeka Ujukwu. Emeka hails originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and graduated with his master's degree in ILR in 2019, and currently works for the Creative Artist Agency in their New York City HR department. There, he focuses on the creation and implementation of development opportunities for CAA's assistant population. Prior to ILR, Emeka studied sociology at Amherst College and spent 3 amazing years with the Yale NUS College in Singapore, where he was a Dean's Fellow. Joining us tonight as well is Rob Panulo, who graduated in 2017 from Cornell ILR and went on to Fordham Law School. And during his time at Fordham, he also worked part-time for Major League Baseball Players Association, and upon graduation this past May, Rob accepted a full-time opportunity with them, where he currently focuses on salary arbitration and baseball economic matters. We also have Riley Short. Riley graduated in 2019 and most recently completed her year as an East Coast NBC Universal Page, where she had assignments within digital enterprises, NBC Sports Production, and The Today Show. Currently, she is a team coordinator for the Corporate Partnerships and Investments team within Peacock. During her time at ILR, she served as an ILR Worker Institute Research Fellow and was a campus tour guide. So let's jump in. To lead us off, I'll ask each of them to share their break-in story and how they found themselves working in sports and entertainment. Harrison, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thank you to Jordan and everybody else for organizing this entire week. I've tuned into all the panels, and it's really been awesome to connect with old faces from the past and love to see Cornell and ILR's commitment to the sports and entertainment industry. So yeah, as Elizabeth mentioned, I just graduated this past May. I really knew ever since the day I stepped foot on Cornell's campus that I wanted to work in the sports industry, especially right out of college. It all starts, I was at a college career fair in junior or senior year of high school, and I saw a magazine at this Cornell ILR booth, and Commissioner Bettman and Commissioner Manfred were both on the cover, and I immediately was like, I need to check this out further and see what this school's all about. And from day one on campus, I knew I wanted to be active in the ILR Sports Business Society. As many of you listening know, I was the co-president of the club last year, and I will never stop vouching for SBS and the connections you can build from it and the amount you can learn from the leaders that the club allows you to network with and learn from their experiences in the sports industry. So SBS was certainly a huge part of me eventually getting this job with the NFL and the junior rotational program. I'd also say that a big part of it is not just your activities in the classroom or at Cornell, but it's a lot of it is sending that cold email or networking with executives in the industry. And I remember my junior fall, I probably spent more time sending emails to people who work in the sports industry. I would go on LinkedIn and type in this company, this team, this agency, and then Cornell, and just send cold messages or emails to those people and really I spent more time doing that than I did to any class, to any club, to anything else really. And that was a real game changer, I think, for me. I think it's not about meeting somebody who automatically gives you the job. That's not how it works. It's about meeting somebody where you can learn about their department, ask them somebody else they recommend you speak to, and then go from there. And then when that interview comes around, you can say, "Hey, I spoke to so and so about this group and was able to learn about this from him or her," and so on and so forth. And so that was really important for me. And as Elizabeth mentioned, I interned at the NFL last summer, and I was able to gain the experience and meet the people at the league office that were important for me to then apply for the junior rotational program. And that's what I'm in now. I started in August. It's a 2-year full-time position where I'll get to rotate between 4 different groups at the NFL. And again, as Elizabeth mentioned, right now I'm in the broadcasting department, really focusing on the compliance side of things. So the NFL has these billion-dollar contracts with various networks, and it's part of my job to ensure they're compliant. A lot of the rights related to advertising or sponsorship, et cetera. And so that's what a lot of my job is focused on right now in the broadcasting group. And from there, I'll turn it back to Elizabeth.
Great, thank you. Emeka, tell us a little bit about how you found yourself at CAA.
Yeah, so unlike Harrison, I didn't know I always wanted to be in sports and entertainment. It was just kind of life brought me to there where I had to make a decision and ask myself, what's next? So originally I went to Amherst College, studied sociology, honestly had no idea what I was going to do with a sociology degree. I just knew I really liked the subject, and so I just rocked with it. And I was doing a lot of, I have an education background, so I was doing a lot of education-related tutoring while I was an undergrad. And then I sort of took the leap of going to Singapore and went to Singapore for 3 years working as a Dean's Fellow at a startup college. So when I got there, it was the school's second year of existence, and I really just got to see sort of how our startup runs from the ground up and just really had an awesome time. But then it was the question of like, okay, what's next? And what's next brought me to Cornell, studying human resource management, dispute resolution. I did my last semester at the business school studying strategic operations. And I did an internship at the Hershey Company. And it was great. I had a great time. But when I kind of, reevaluated, hey, this is where I want to be, the answer wasn't a hardcore yes. It was, I kind of asked my question, if I go and told my younger self, this is where, would he be happy that I was here? And he would just kind of shrug. And I asked myself, okay, but where would he be happy about? Where would the younger me be like thrilled to work at? And so I did what any person would do, and I wrote down my dream companies and just kind of made this list of where are the places that I really want to be at. And they were the NBA, Dreamville, which is J. Cole's record label, Marvel, Disney, so I could just work at Marvel because I'm a big comic book guy. And ultimately, I kind of asked myself, okay, what's the common theme here? And it was sports and entertainment. And I just kind of rocked with that for the rest of my second year at ILR, just like dedicated myself to trying to figure out, all right, how can I break into this field? And using the HR route to get there. And so lucky for me, I contacted and I talked to an alum who let me know about Teamworks Online. I researched Teamworks Online and saw they had a sports career fair at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And it was during my spring break. I went, really trying to talk to the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets, just anyone that would take me. And I saw this booth. It was a CAA booth. And I honestly didn't know what CAA was at the time. I just know that it was a long line. And so I was like, this is probably a place that I should check out. And so I went and stood in line, talked to the recruiter, learned more about the company, had a great conversation with the recruiter about an HR role that was hopefully going to open up. They weren't sure at that time. Lucky for me, the conversation was good. I had my resume ready and handed it to her. And then that same night, I went and applied online. And then I graduated without a job. And so it took them 3 months to get back to me. So if I could tell anyone anything, especially in the moment right now, is definitely be patient. I applied in April. I didn't hear anything back until end of July. And fortunately, it was just, one conversation led to another conversation. And here I am, about a year and some change in.
Awesome. That's a great story. Rob, I know Cornell took you to Fordham Law, and now you find yourself at the MLBPA. Can you share a little bit about how that journey unfolded?
Yeah, thanks so much. And I just want to thank everyone too who's spending their Friday night, tuning in and listening to us. ILR means so much to all of us here, and it really is a special place. So we're grateful that everyone's spending their time listening here, and we're glad to share our stories, and anything we can do to help. This is what we're here for, because someone helped us get to where we are in the first place. For my story, it's similar to Harrison's. I always knew that I wanted to work in sports. I wasn't necessarily sure what that was going to look like. While at Cornell, I wanted to stay as close to sports as possible. I played sprint football and walked onto the baseball team, but I always knew that my playing days were going to end at some point. So I wanted to find a way to blend my passion for sports with my interest in labor relations and a lot of what you learn in your classes at ILR. During my freshman year, or after that year, my summer, I got an unpaid internship with my local minor league baseball team near my house, the New Jersey Jackals. And it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. And I think that one of the great things about internships is you can learn as much as you learn about what you might love, you will also learn what you might not love. I didn't love the game day and promotion side of things that I was working in. I was everything from putting the tarp on the field when it was raining, to helping with ticket sales, to running around the field in a hot dog suit, and being the mid-game entertainment. And I learned that I didn't necessarily want to be on the game day and promotion side, but that was the first stepping stone to being in sports for me. And truthfully, I think a lot of people who want to work in sports will realize, especially during college, how hard it is to find the internship you want. I felt like it was impossible. And a lot of your friends around you might be taking more traditional job routes, whether it's in finance or in something else, where the application process is much more streamlined. So my friends, all around me were getting internships during my junior year, but I knew that, I was interested in something very specific, and I wasn't able to find it. I ultimately ended up creating my own summer my junior year, where I had just done different shadowing opportunities with the Tampa Bay Rays, the MLB Network, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, at somewhere like the Rays, I had actually gotten rejected for an internship with them for that summer, but I stayed in touch with them and asked if I could just come down and shadow for a few days. They were, gracious enough. It wasn't any imposition to them. And ultimately, I studied for the LSAT that summer. And in the back of my head, I always felt that going to law school could never hurt in this industry. So I went, and even after my first year, I still didn't have that real first internship, in sports. I felt like, again, it was impossible to get, but I got the first one I had was with the Philadelphia Eagles, when I had sent probably 100, blind emails and guessing the general manager of the Eagles' email address because he was a Fordham Law alum. So I'm guessing every permutation I possibly could have guessed, and I got probably 99 return to senders. Finally, I got one that wasn't a return to sender, and I felt, maybe this one went through. Ultimately, he had emailed me back saying, hey, yeah, I'd love to, get on the phone with you for a minute, or maybe you can talk to my number 2. So, I got those 99 return to senders, but it only takes one. It only takes one response to get what you really do need. From there, I interned with the Eagles and had a great experience, and ultimately made my way to MLB Players Association through a law school salary arbitration competition at Tulane, where I was competing and met my now boss there. So you really don't know how things are going to pop up. I think that my story is really a lesson of being persistent and being ready at all times, and realizing that internships don't always exist. You kind of have to create them, and you have to find your ways into them. This path is, very non-traditional, working in sports, and you have to embrace that. And that's one of the tough parts about it. But, this ILR network is something that will help you get there.
Great. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate your story. Riley, what was your journey, and how did you end up at NBC? and Peacock.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. I can definitely echo Rob when it comes to leaning into ILR. I did not know that I wanted to work in sports and entertainment definitively. I grew up as an athlete, an avid fan of many sports, particularly the Olympic Games. And I also always found myself breaking down television shows and movies and talking about it with my friends and my family. And it wasn't until perhaps my junior fall that I realized that post-graduation, I wanted to continue to do that with my job. So I also was in that haze of watching everybody else take traditional internships and feeling that that just isn't what I wanted. So I actually leaned more into the school, and I had a credit internship during my junior spring. I spent that spring in Los Angeles working at the Writers Guild of America, and it was an amazing experience. I even did an entire semester project focusing on writers, their compensation, and the ongoing battles between the Guild and the Association of Talent Agencies. And I found that it was incredibly interesting, and I still kind of felt like I didn't necessarily know where I fit in this industry, what it was that I wanted to do, because again, I loved film, but I loved sports too. I loved television. I loved social media. So coming out of that internship, I spoke some more to people in ILR and career services, and it was that way that I found out about the PAGE program at NBC. The PAGE program is a year long, and it is rotational as well. You can do the options on the East Coast as well as the West Coast, and the East Coast has a sports part as well. So I started in May of 2019, just a couple of days after graduating, drove down to New York City to start in 30 Rock. And I had my first rotation with the digital enterprises team, and that's actually the team that I currently work with now at Peacock. Our job titles have just changed now that we support NBC's initiative into the streaming world. But in addition to working with digital, I also spent 3 months in Stamford, Connecticut, working in sports production, which was incredible. And then my last rotation was with the Today Show, focusing on news, which wasn't what I expected it to look like due to the coronavirus pandemic. But to be able to say that I worked for a major news company, particularly the Today Show, right when Corona hit the United States, as well as the height of the Black Lives Matter protests this summer, was really an unforgettable experience. And I know that all of those connections are going to matter when I take the next step in my career.
That's awesome. There's a lot of key themes that all of you share in your stories. So as we're waiting, and asking all of you out there to share your questions with us, I'm gonna share ask a few questions of my own to all of you. Let me start with Emeka. How important is persistence? That came up a few times in each of your stories.
Yeah, it's very important. Persistence is important, and it's also important to not just put all your eggs in one basket. I think for me, like I said, it took 3 months for me to hear anything back, but it wasn't like I was just twiddling my thumbs waiting just to hear anything back. So I kept hustling at the same time, and I kept reaching out to alumni, just having different kind of conversations. I must have talked to someone in NBA, I talked to someone in Activision, I talked to someone at Pixar, just really trying to reach my net as far as possible. And it's also important to know that you may have a dream company, but also realize you may not be ready for that company just yet. So it's important to look for company equivalents. Whether you go to LinkedIn and you look at Disney and go to the side and you see companies similar to Disney, check those companies out as well. And in the meantime, just make your resume stronger so that when it does come to someone at Disney, when it does come into someone at NBC or Peacock, like they are saying to themselves, oh, this person wasn't ready for us last year, but look at them now. And that was what I had to do. Like I had to make sure that I was staying sharp and being ready for the moment whenever it did happen to come. So
important, right? Being ready and preparing yourself and being persistent, but also being patient, right? That's part of what it takes to break into this industry. Riley, this similar for you too, right? The networking, but you took it a slightly different route and leveraged the career services team within ILR. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I basically moved into career services during my senior year. Like I said, found out about the PAGE program through career services, and it was also through bugging them, nagging them every day, which I'm sure wasn't a bother to them, that I was able to learn more about particularly ILR alums who had been in the PAGE program, either on the West Coast or the East Coast, or who worked at NBC just in general. And that was a really important part of not just preparing for my application to the PAGE program, but also during the application process. I was able to learn more about what exactly NBC as a company looks like internally, and whether or not that was a personal fit for me as well, which I think is something that's really important when you're trying to break into the business, is that a lot of things can seem shiny and great, and they are, but you also need to think about yourself as well and what's going to make sense for you, where you're going to learn the most, where you're going to be able to try something new and be pushed outside of your comfort zone, which I think is really important.
Excellent. I know, Harrison, a little bit about your background. I happen to know that you played sports in high school. And Rob had mentioned playing sports as well. And I think that comes up often, at least I find in conversations with folks who are looking to break into the business and trying to understand how important it is that you aren't a former athlete. Can you share a little bit about that relative to coming into the current organization you're at, or in general in the sports industry?
Yeah, definitely. So I can say it's not important at all. I've never played in a single second of organized football, yet I work at the NFL league office in New York City. So I would say while certain things can transfer over depending on the role you're in, a large majority of roles in the sports and entertainment industry really rely on no athletic experience in the past at all. It's really about your communication skills, your organization skills, how well you can work with others, how well your understanding is of the business side itself, not necessarily what goes on between the sidelines or on the field. It's really about how well you can understand what's the league's relationship with its players association, what's the league's relationship with its sponsors, things like that. So definitely not at all would be my answer.
Good. And I agree, right? Like, I think a lot of times all of us journey into this industry from different passions, and maybe sometimes the passion of a fan, right? And how we turn our passion in fandom. I'm seeing all of your heads nod, right? How we turn our passion as fans into a profession, right? And I'll never forget the day that I got a phone call. I wasn't even looking for a job to come to where I am today. And I've been a diehard 76ers fan since I was a little kid. And so having that opportunity, right, to marry something that you're personally passionate about with your profession makes it really fun. Rob,
real quick.
Yeah, please.
Just, on that point, as someone who works as an agency, like, you definitely want to have some fandom, but you want to be able to rein it in, because you will see famous people, and it's really on your brand to interact with them in a professional manner. I remember one situation where my job is to give tours when we have new people come in, and I'm giving a tour, and literally the room I'm about to walk in, Dwayne Wade literally just walked out, and of course to the new people that have just joined us, I'm like, damn, like I just missed Dwayne Wade. But I do that mentally. Inside, I'm like, okay, just so you know, Dwayne Wade's behind that door. Let's be quiet as we're, checking the room out. Now let's keep going. And so there's definitely a moment where, as you walk into these spaces, yes, be a fan, be expressive, but at the same time, be able to rein that in as well.
Absolutely.
That's a great point, Emeka. I mean, that's a one-way ticket out of the industry. I think you'll hear from people is being a fan while you're here. No doubt, I love baseball. I love watching baseball, but when a famous player comes and walks in, or I'm working on a case for him, you really have to keep that separate. You could never, ask for a picture or something like that. That is like the number one overall golden rule, I'd say. That's just, it comes along with what it is. It comes along with being in the business. So I think it's a great point, Emeka.
Absolutely. And you see a lot of head nods, as I think all of us would agree that's definitely a really important point in terms of your professional brand and how you show up at work and how you appreciate and work within the industry that we all have the pleasure of doing. So, Rob, I want to go back to one of the points that you had made when you were talking about how you broke into the industry, and in the course of your journey, you took an unpaid internship, and that's not always something that's possible for everyone to do. So can you share a little bit about for folks that are looking to get into this industry, and many times there are unpaid internships available, how do you balance all of that if that's not something that is fiscally possible for you?
Yeah, Elizabeth, I think that's such a really great question because internships are already so hard to find in this industry. And the fact is that some are also unpaid. And it's not always a possibility to take on that burden of spending a summer without making money or something like that. So, I'd say there are two prongs to this question. The first one is how to approach not being able to have an unpaid internship and not being able to bear that. I think the first part of that is it's not all just about working in sports. I'd say that it's about being able to develop skills that are transferable to the sports world. When I was working for the New Jersey Jackals, when I was in that job, I was developing sales skills. I was developing interpersonal skills and teamwork skills. It happened to be in the sports industry. It happened to be selling, the brand of baseball and our minor league team, but I could have gotten that doing so many other things. So I think it's really important to seek avenues that will enable you to build skills that will be transferable to that industry. The other side of it, I think, is acknowledging what an unpaid internship is. When I was at the unpaid internship, and ILR actually really helped guide me here, New Lions particularly gave me a heads up before starting and said, listen, they're not paying you. So you need to make this internship work for you, because everything that you're providing them with is really just gratuitous. So for me, I was working the games from 3 o'clock until 10 o'clock when the games were over. We're setting up beforehand and afterward. But during the day, I was working at a summer camp, at my local high school and making it work that way. It was tough to balance all of that, but again, this industry comes with sacrifices. But I would overall say that, although taking an unpaid internship isn't feasible for everyone, it is something that you can work around and you can make work for you. And if you can't, just try to find those skills that you can develop that you would have through that internship otherwise.
Awesome advice. So I'm going to open up to a little bit of a dialogue before we open up to the questions that the audience has been sending in. I'm sure everyone is thinking, all of you have such glamorous roles at amazing organizations. So I want you to tell us a little bit. What's the best part of your role? Maybe get under the hood a little bit. And what's the least fun? So let's jump in. Riley, do you want to start us off? Tell us a little bit about it.
So my role, particularly within Peacock, is the coordinator for the corporate partnerships and investment team. And while that does mean that I have access to everything that everyone on my team does, that also means that I am their admin, particularly for 2 senior vice presidents. So the fun part of my job comes through the access that I have. I get to sit in, and while taking notes might not be that glamorous, taking notes on discussions about the TikTok algorithm is actually really cool. I get to learn about how the app works, what we could potentially do to help promote NBC content on that app, and also how the app could possibly pair with streaming when we're thinking about Peacock and getting more people to use it. So that is definitely what I consider to be the most fun. And I think it's kind of obvious what would probably not be great, and that's the admin work, whether that's scheduling meetings of 55 people or going through an Excel sheet and just going over data to make sure that everything is right for our next business review. That nitty-gritty stuff is never necessarily glamorous, but the benefits of the job certainly are.
Excellent. Rob, I saw you laughing a little bit when I asked this question, so it sounds like there's a good story back there.
No, I just think this is such a great question because, you hear so much about what are the best and worst parts of your job, and you hear all about the great things. And you hear all about the flashy things, but you don't always hear about the less glamorous aspects of working in sports, the trade-offs that come along with it. So for me, I never wanted to live for the weekend. I never wanted to, dislike what I was doing Monday through Friday. I wanted to enjoy the job that I took. And I think that if you're passionate about something, you'll be better at it. You'll be more motivated to do it. So for me, I love the proximity that I have to the game. I love advocating for players. Is it nice knowing news before it comes out, on SportsCenter later that day or on a tweet? Like, yeah, I guess that's, a little bit of an added little benefit to it. But there are so many trade-offs that come with it too that people don't necessarily recognize. For a lot of jobs in sports, you're working when everyone else is having fun. We're talking about this with Harrison too, and I'm sure he'll expand on this, but, a lot of what we do is when you're watching a game, we're working during the game. And the other part of it is that you have to miss a lot. For my position at the MLBPA, I'm in Arizona or Florida for all of February, working from 6 a.m. until 3 a.m., including on the weekends. And, I miss the Super Bowl with my friends. I miss my girlfriend's birthday back home. I miss a lot of these things that you might otherwise take for granted. And, you might otherwise have more flexibility in a certain job and not have to, make those trade-offs. It's not always glorious work. When I was with the Eagles, everyone hears about how, cool it was for me to break down film and, deliver scouting reports. But they don't hear about, how I was filling up the water bottles and stapling play cards, something you didn't necessarily need a Cornell degree to do. So, I think that it's really important because you go in with, starry eyes to this industry, and it really is important to get the full picture. I love what I do. I would never trade it for the world, but, it is really important going in to recognize the trade-offs that come along with it.
Absolutely. I think most of us on this call can attest to the hours that we put into this industry. So thank you for sharing that. Harrison?
Yeah, I as Rob said, I love this question too, and I couldn't agree more with what Riley and Rob said. My stories are definitely pretty similar. As Riley said, I will say one of the most rewarding parts of the job for me is the ability to sit in on some of these meetings where what's being discussed, I personally think is fascinating, and take notes for people for those meetings. So over the summer when the NFL was trying to work with its players association to put the protocols in place and figure out the economics for how to get football back on the field this season. While maybe for some fans that's a secondary thought, it was awesome for me to be in those meetings, getting the updates from the leaders of the group on how the talks are progressing with the players association and what this season might look like. And also similarly now in my broadcast group, whether it's an internal meeting where we discuss the strategy for the next round of media rights deals with the network partners, just being able to sit in on those meetings and take notes for others is really just very rewarding for me personally. Another thing that I really enjoy about it is the NFL is this big, massive brand with this reputation to uphold, and seeing the games go to millions of people on Sundays. And there's been times where one of the networks runs a story on some player or coach off the field, and I'll see that and I'll be like, oh, wow, I sent that to the producer on Wednesday. And sometimes that's really cool to see and have it come to fruition on such a massive platform like an NFL game. And then definitely on the other side of the spectrum, I'd say a majority of most of my days are spent video clipping, pulling clips from games that happened over the weekend. And it is not a glamorous task, if we're going to be honest. So while there are perks that definitely comes with it, and to Rob's point about the hours and when games are on, we're working. My job literally is to sit and watch football and make sure nothing wrong goes on. So I know we had a couple meetings preparing for this, and I think Elizabeth put one of them on a Thursday night, and I asked to move it because of Thursday night football, and then she rescheduled it to Monday night, and I was like, oh wait, can we move that one too? Monday night football. So it's
making it sound
like
I really don't know anything about when NFL airs.
No. Trust me, I know the schedule way too well. No, but in all seriousness, like also Rob said, Super Bowl plans. Like I already know my Super Bowl plans. I'll be in the office working and making sure everything goes well with the broadcast. So while there are the perks and you get to learn a ton, I will say that there are some non-glamorous job aspects of the job that come with being a junior level employee at the company.
Yeah, and I think that goes for any level of the organization, right? And the hours too. Working in team sports, for us, we'll come in and work a full day. We have a game that evening, especially if it's on broadcast and we're running off of a West Coast team and it's a late game start. Many of us on 76ers or the Devils will end up working 15, 16-hour days in season during home games, right? And it's a little bit relentless, and there are a lot of games, and MLB can tops it, but like there are a lot of games in hockey and basketball, right? Especially when you have both teams playing in the same season. So you're definitely, I joke all the time, it's not for the faint of heart, right? If you're looking to work 9 to 5, this is probably not the industry for you. Emeka, you want to share a little bit about your perspective?
Yeah, I would, just to your point about the 9 to 5, don't expect to work 9 to 5, especially when headquarters is on the West Coast. And you listen, like, there's so many times where we're just waiting for LA to do something or act on something, and our hands are tied. Our hands are tied until that happens, because that's where the majority of the business happens. And so just backing up a little bit, definitely echoing what Riley said. My first year at the company, I was an assistant, and which was crucial for me because it's an agency. And the people that I'm working with in terms of helping them develop are the assistants and the people who are trying to become agents one day. And in order to do that effectively, it's good for me to know what their job looks like. And so the day-to-day of answering calls and rolling calls and doing expenses and tracking this meeting and scheduling and all that good stuff, like I was doing it. Fortunately for me, my boss is HR. And so, I mean, she's head of HR for the Northeast region, but she's not necessarily as busy as like a motion pictures agent who has Brad Pitt and Scarlett Johansson on their client list. So I got a taste of it, not as in the trenches as some other people, but I definitely got a good amount of taste of it that I don't regret not having to do it anymore. But it was good while it lasted. But the fun part definitely is just seeing how things connect. I mean, the beauty of being at an agency where you can see you have your NBA star who's trying to get into marketing, who is trying to be a part of brands, who's trying to go into this movie and trying to go into this TV show, and just seeing how it all just plays a part with each other in creating what we see. Like, that's on our TV screens, that's in the movie theaters. That's been the beauty that I've been enjoying since I've been here.
That's great. So we're going to take some questions from the audience, and I'll ask my panelists to just jump in and help provide their perspective. So the first question we have is, how can students stay on the right side of being persistent and proactive while not being too pesky when reaching out to alumni and other contacts at companies they want to work for?
I can jump in first unless somebody else wants to. I would say, kind of to what Rob was saying earlier, but a little different about 99 emails not going through, but the one that did. Even if you do have the right email address, I think 99 to 1 is still an appropriate ratio for if you can expect to get a response back or not. So I think when you're sending out emails to people trying to network, I would say don't expect to get an answer back. And if you don't get an answer back, that's okay. Don't take it personally. Maybe email them next year. Maybe email them a few months later. Wait for those that do answer you and really take advantage of the ones that you are able to get in touch with. So I think it's really just about being patient and not expecting everybody to answer you, because that's unrealistic and they don't know you answers. So I think that's the mindset to have.
Emeka?
Yeah, I would just say my rule is twice and move on. So you send the initial message, then wait a while, then send a follow-up message in case no one responds, and then just let it go. If they don't respond after the second message, then you just move on to the next person and just wait. You know, sometimes it takes people a while to actually see the message. I had one situation where I emailed someone on LinkedIn. I sent my nice message when I reached out to connect. No reply, but they accepted my request. So I was like, all right, this is cool, I'm in. And then I just kind of waited a day or two to see if they're going to say anything. No reply. And so I sent a follow-up message saying like, hey, like, thank you for accepting my request. Would still love to talk to you and da-da-da. And no reply. It was still cold. But I was like, oh, we connected though, so at least it's something. And like, they are aware of me in the ether out there someplace somewhere, only to find out 2 months later, the person reaches back out saying, hey, I don't know how this stuff got lost in my messages. Would love to talk. And you just kind of wait for those moments like that. But if I've kept messaging 3, 4, 5, 6 times to the same person, that does become pesky, and you don't want to have that reputation.
Right. So and you said you waited. So like, talk about wait time. Like what is the appropriate wait time?
I think for me, after sending their connection request and they like accepted it, I think a day and a half is great, because usually when people accept it, they do go to their message and they'll see like a ping, and they'll see your message there. Sometimes people just ignore it. Sometimes they see it and they're saying, I'm going to reply later, and they just don't get around to it. But I would definitely say a day to 2 days is the time to follow up. But yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Great.
Yeah,
Rob, you're gonna jump in.
I'd like to chime in here too, because I think those are both really good points from Harrison and Mecca. And I think that what's ultimately really important to remember is that you need to make connections with people before you need something from them. I've heard it analogized in this way, and that it's that you need to put money in the bank before you can take money out of the bank. If you want to make connections with someone, it's important to make that connection with them before you're asking them for an internship or for a job. And people love to talk about themselves. So, if you reach out with an email and you say, hey, I saw, or a LinkedIn message, I saw your background, I was a Cornell ILR as well. I'm just really curious about your path from this to that. I'd love to just pick your brain for a few minutes if you have a chance. Thanks so much for connecting. And it's something as simple as that. And once you get them on the phone, you've made a connection. And then from there, it's about maintaining that connection. And you don't want to have to make an ask on that first time. I've been in that position. It's a tough position to be in, because you need to show that you're real. What separates you from any other person who is asking for the same conversation? Sometimes it might even help to go in with some deliverable before you've even gone in. This was something that Robbie Cohen and Alex Menez brought up on their networking panel. If you can send someone an email with a deliverable, with something that you put together and put a lot of time into, you are way more likely to get a response from something like that says, hey, I put together this model that predicts, what someone might have to make next year, in free agency or in salary arbitration or in any different industry or field that we work in. That will get recognized, and you're most likely to get a response from something like that than just, a blank email that says, hey, can I get a job?
There's a follow-up question that adds on to what you were saying from Deva. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize. But they're asking, how often is it appropriate to reach out to professional contact that you want to maintain that relationship with? I don't know, Riley, if you have any thoughts on that, or Rob, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I can loop this in. I wanted to add, just in terms of reaching out to alumni, don't be afraid to lean into career services. Oftentimes what that means is they might know of a person in a specific position that could be of interest to you. That's where that's the department that you're interested in or whatnot, and they can loop you in on an email, which definitely helps to get a response back. So again, what everyone has said is true, but don't be afraid to use them. They're there to help you. And in terms of reaching out to maintain that relationship, for me, I was put in contact with an alum who was probably like 30 years my senior. So that definitely was something that I was apprehensive about. I didn't necessarily know how often to contact them or not. And I think that it kind of just flows naturally. So oftentimes the first initial conversation is asking about their career path, what it is that they do on a day-to-day, any recommendations that they might have for you moving forward. And I think it's definitely fair to keep them updated on your progress. Say you did apply to something, let them know if you heard back for an interview, an essay, or you're making it on to the next step. Or if you see some of their work that they've done and you thought it was pretty cool, definitely reach out to let them know as well. And you might often find that the alum will reach out to you on their own because they see that you've been surfaced or your name came through and whatnot. And so it will flow pretty naturally.
Awesome advice. That's great. Going on to the next question. Rob, you have a couple here, so you're in the hot seat, friend. One of the questions that came in is, have your different career paths and internships transformed the way you think about the industry or specifically your future path? And how, I guess the follow-up question kind of hooks to that is, how do you apply those experiences to your current work at the MLBPA?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I'm not sure if whoever asked this is, getting into the specifics here, but something that you'll learn as you enter into at least the labor side of sports is that there really is, a demarcation, a philosophical divide between how management might view things and how the labor side, the agency side or the union might view things. So when I had taken the internship with the Philadelphia Eagles, that was, an internship on the side of, management. And when I later took a summer associate position with Winston and Strawn, which is outside counsel to the NFL Players Association, that was jumping to the other side. And I've learned that the barrier can be high to, move from one side to another. It certainly happens, but it's also something that I think is important for people to know going into the industry as well. At the same time, I think the second part of this question asks about, how it might shape perspective or the way people think. For me, I think that it's important that anytime I get a problem at work, I try to think about how the other side is viewing this before I, might get primed on my own perspective. So if I'm valuing a certain baseball player, if I'm valuing how much Aaron Judge is worth, this year, I might think about how the team views it first before I think about how I view it. You get very stuck in your own positions when you get primed on your own background, and it's important to think about, all sides of the arguments that could be made. And I think that's transferable to a lot of different industries.
So I'm gonna take you all back in my time machine, and you're standing freshman year on campus. Emeka, we're going to Amherst too, don't worry. So you're standing on freshman campus and you have the next 4 years ahead of you. What do you do that's the same that you did that helped you get where you are today? And what is that missed opportunity that you're like, I should have done that while I was on campus, it would have separated me apart? I'll give you a second to think about that. Whoever hits the button first can chime in.
I think I can take a stab at this.
All right, let's do it, Riley.
For sure, the thing that I would do all over again is be a tour guide. And I know that that's really specific, but I think what I mean to say is get a job on campus. One of the alumni that I spoke to in my job search, I actually found her through tour guides. She was also a tour guide when she was at Cornell. And I wouldn't have known that going into trying to get this job. I just needed a job at the time. And even if you don't need a job per se, definitely do it because those social connections do matter. And I think that the thing that I would have taken more advantage of is becoming a research fellow at ILR sooner. So I didn't become a fellow until my senior year. And I absolutely loved what I did. I was looking at works of literature, fiction, films, playwrights, and seeing how working women were represented in them. But because it was my senior year and I was applying for jobs, my research, I didn't necessarily spend as much time on it as I would have liked to because it meant so much to me. So I think that having a longer period of time to do that project, I don't know what more could have come from it. Might have published something, could have put together a feature that matched the entertainment focus that it was in. So that would be what I did differently.
Awesome. Who's in my time machine and ready to go?
I can jump in now because what Riley just said about the job is just so important. You don't want to be in a job interview and they're asking you what your greatest challenge was during your academic or during your school years, and your answer is an academic answer of how I stayed up mad late to finish a test or write an essay. You don't want that to be your answer. And if they ask you, can someone speak to your leadership ability or to your ability to work in a team, you don't want to say, oh, my lab partner is the only one who can do that. You want to have actual examples. And so for me, I had 3 jobs freshman year by the second month of freshman year, 4 jobs by the start of sophomore year, and then 6 jobs during senior year. So I was running all up and down the place. Unfortunately for me, academically, as a sociology major, I could do it. I can't say if I was pre-med, I would be able to balance it all. But it was fun. And it was fun seeing the different aspects of just how campus worked together and building relationships through that experience. If anything I could do over again, now that I know what I know, I would probably pursue or try to pursue at least one entertainment/sports related internship. Instead of always I did 3-4 years of education-based internships, which were great, and I had a great time. but I could have mixed it up a little bit in hindsight.
Got it.
I can jump in here, and I have a quick one. I think one thing I would maybe do differently is specific to the ILR Sports Business Society. I would say I think a lot of what I got out of the club and leadership roles really came towards the end of my college experience. But looking back on it, there's really no reason that as a freshman or a sophomore, I couldn't have taken more initiative and taken more leadership roles within the club. I think that's one of the beauties of the club. And I remember saying it all the time last year. Whatever you put into the club is what you're going to get out of it. And as a freshman and a sophomore, unlike other clubs maybe on campus, you can take on leadership roles. You can start a new project. You can start a new idea for the club and have that groundwork from day one, as opposed to maybe once you're a junior or a senior on the e-board. So I think that's one thing that everyone, especially the younger people in the club, should keep in mind is always be proactive, and whatever you want to do, the answer is never going to be no.
I think that's a great point from Harrison, actually. And I think that, on top of being proactive, I think it's important to be busy. Don't get too bogged down in your classes. That's not what I necessarily mean by don't be busy. But I learned more outside the classroom than I did inside of it. And I know it's weird to say, and I'm not trying to tell people to disregard, their academics, because you shouldn't. Your grades are important and they'll help you get to where you need to be, and you'll learn a lot through your classes. But I am saying that it's important to make relationships with people while you're in school. There are so many people who I connect with now that I connected originally with when we were in college, and they're in the industry, whether it be on the agency side or on a team side, and you don't realize it while you're in college. But the people who you're around with now, ILR in particular spits out so many people into the sports world. So the people that you're with now are the people who will also be prominent in the industry. So stay busy, but also, make sure you have fun and make sure you make relationships with people. And the other part of it is, I think that make the most of being a student when it comes to networking. My dad always told me that, people are much more willing to talk to students than they are to, someone who is just reaching out to them as a, 30-year-old and reaching out to have a conversation. Like, that might even be kind of weird at that point. But for a student, you can be vulnerable and you can say, I don't know what I want to do, but I think your path is interesting. And people are willing generally to spend that time to talk for you. You have a platform as a student that you should take advantage of.
Excellent. As we have a few more questions that came in while we've been chatting. Let me share this, and then we can get into it. So Mark Cuban was asked how young college students can set themselves up for success to get into the sports industry. His response at the time was, don't. Gain practical experience in relevant areas, maintain that passion for sports, and eventually you'll get there because there are a million other young students just like you. All four of you, or 3.5, you're in media. Riley with a detour through sports. I'll open it up to sports and entertainment writ large, right? Do you agree with Mark Cuban's perspective?
I can tackle this one first. I think I'm not going to fully agree. I think I don't want to speak for Mark Cuban. I'm not one to disagree with him or twist his words, but I think he definitely has a point. I don't think he fully means don't work in sports, don't even think about it. I think his point is it's about gaining, as Rob was saying earlier, transferable skills. And whether you're working on the marketing side of things or whatever aspect of the industry you're in, it's about gaining transferable skills and then bringing that into the sports industry. So I agree with his point, but at the same time, I think it's foolish to just say don't and leave it with a period like that. I think there's more to it, and I think that's what he meant by that quote.
Excellent. Anybody else want to add to that?
I can add to that for sure. So I did have a little bit of a detour through sports, but it wasn't necessarily a detour. It was on purpose. In sports, I wanted to be in Connecticut and I wanted to learn about production. And I think this might be the reason that I do agree with Mark Cuban, is because I had absolutely no experience in production whatsoever. I had volunteered at multiple live sports games growing up for the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, even got to work the Super Bowl and the Final Four, and it was awesome. But I still didn't necessarily know how to edit video, how to run scripts to staff, how to build a graphic. I had absolutely no idea how to do any of that. but being passionate about sports is what got me in the door. I loved the Olympics. I knew that NBC had the Olympics contract, and just knowing those facts I was able to stand out when I applied for the position. And I also loved sports that were probably niche. I loved gymnastics. I love rhythmic gymnastics. So I could speak to that, and that passion kind of showed through. And something that I learned while in Stanford is that not everybody who is working at sports has a sports background. They're more so passionate about what they're working on. And I think that that's the most important thing. My supervisor actually told me, we can teach anybody how to do anything, but we can't teach you how to be passionate about the athletes and the game that is on the screen. So I would say that while it is important to have transferable skills, there's nothing that can replace that passion.
It's a great answer. I know we're coming to the end of our time, so I'm going to ask each of you to just give us a few final words, advice that you would give anyone that's standing ahead and looking out at their future in the sports, media, and entertainment industry. Emeka, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I think the two main things I would say is be patient and be open. I think especially right now, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, and some companies are frozen in terms of their hiring or whatnot, and so it can feel a little hectic. So definitely, if you see opportunities that are open out there, apply to them. You never know what's going to happen, so apply anyway. But at the same time, be patient and then be open to other opportunities that can help you sharpen your skill sets for when the opportunity to join said organization that you're really passionate about comes and presents itself.
Excellent. Rob?
I think that off of Emeka's point a little bit, I think I'll say that my two main pieces of advice would be to be passionate and stay ready and be persistent as well. This industry is one in which you don't really know how it's going to play out, and you have to embrace that uncertainty. You'll have that, for years down the line. I still have that uncertainty. Day to day. But I would just say that be passionate, stay ready, and make those connections. And even after you make an initial connection, it's so important to maintain those connections, even when you don't think you need them in that moment. Something that everybody can be better at. I can myself. But if you have a relationship with someone, you don't know when you might want to get back in touch with them, and you don't want to lose those contacts down the line.
Excellent. Riley?
I would say, again, echo on the passion thing that Emeka and Rob have both spoken to. I think that that's really important, but also lean into your resources at ILR. I cannot speak to how important they were for me when it came to learning about the PAGE program, getting me in the door at the PAGE program, and then also meeting other alumni within the company, which has definitely helped me now. So take advantage. I know New Lions was great. Everyone within ILR Career Services is great, but also explore credit internships. Bridget Bleacher is always excited about having people who are interested in sports and entertainment because there are opportunities in there. So definitely take advantage of that.
Awesome. And Harrison, wrap us up.
I'll wrap us up. I know we're getting close to 7, so I'll make it quick. I'll speak to the kind of climate we find ourselves in now. I mean, there's no two ways around it. Finding a job and the sports industry as a whole literally shut down for months. The pandemic is terrible for the sports industry. There's no two ways around it. But if there's any silver lining as a young person or a college student interested in working in sports, I have never seen this many virtual events where you can learn from top executives at different companies, at different leagues, whether it's on LinkedIn or just on their social media platforms. I've seen so many teams and agencies and leagues have these types of virtual learning experiences. And I think it's so easy to take advantage, sign up for free, watch an hour or two of it, and learn from the highest of profile of people in the industry. So I think it's about being opportunistic given this virtual climate, because there seem to be a ton of opportunities out there to learn.
Couldn't say it better myself. On that note, want to thank all of you for tuning in this week and joining us for the first Cornell Sports and Entertainment Week. I hope you have all enjoyed the panels. Thank you to our alumni. Thank you to the students and all the support staff that have made this a really productive and amazing week. Enjoy your weekend and see you all soon.